In Revelation chapter 12, we talk of the woman and the man-child. And I want to explain to you who they are. A lot of people think that the woman is Mary, the mother of Jesus, and that the man-child, who was caught up to God and to His throne, right, is Jesus. And right off the get-go, let's kind of show how that's not possible. In Revelation chapter 4, he says, verse 1, "After this I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which I heard addressed me like the calling of a war trumpet, said, 'Come up here, and I will show you what must take place in the future.'" Well, when John got this revelation, he was on the Isle of Patmos, Apostle John, in somewhere between 60 and 95 AD. I think it's more like 90 AD, but even so, that was, easily 30 to 60 years after Jesus was resurrected from the earth. Okay, so we know that couldn't be Jesus. He's not talking about a past event. Anywhere from chapter 4 on, it'd be a future event. Okay? So there's that. And the woman, that is spoken of in Revelation chapter 12. She's pregnant. She cries out in her birth pangs. And people say, well, that's Israel. It's speaking about Israel. Let me show you something. In Ephesians chapter 5, we'll start at verse 23. He says, "For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, himself the Savior of his body. As the church is subject to Christ, so let wives be subject in everything to their husbands. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her, so that he might sanctify her, having cleansed her by the washing of the water with the word, that he might present the church to himself in glorious splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing. Even so, husbands should love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his own wife loves himself, for no man ever hated his own flesh, but nourishes and carefully protects and cherishes it, as Christ does the church, because we are members of his body. For this reason, man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined with his wife. The two shall become one flesh. This mystery is very great, but I speak concerning Christ and the church." See? The woman is the church. As we'll see down the road as we're teaching this, that the Jews aren't even grafted in yet. It's the woman that flees to the wilderness for 3.5 years. In Revelation 12, he talks about that she's pregnant. She cries out in her birth pangs. And in verse 5, "And she brought forth a man-child, one who is destined to shepherd all nations with an iron staff, and her child was caught up to God and to his throne." Well, see there, that has to be Jesus, because he's destined to shepherd all nations. He's the man-child. He's got an iron staff. And in Revelation 19, it says that. It says, when Jesus is coming back on white horse, right? And with the troops of heaven, from his mouth goes forth a sharp sword in which he can smite the nations. He will shepherd and control them with a rod of iron. See there? That's Jesus. See? And he will tread down the winepress of the fierceness of his wrath and indignation of God. Well, we're talking about time later, actually, in the book of Revelation. And I would say, yes, Jesus rules with a rod of iron. But let me show you something else. In Revelation chapter 2, he's talking to the church at Thyatira. And, hold fast what you have until I come, Jesus said. He who overcomes and who obeys my commands to the very end, I will give him authority over the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as when earthen pots are broken in pieces. And his power over them shall be like that which I myself receive from my Father. Right? He's telling the overcomer, I will give you a rod of iron, and you will rule the nations with me. So when the man-child is caught up to God and to his throne, and he's given a rod of iron in Revelation chapter 12, it's not specific just to Jesus. It's also to the overcomer. And I would submit to you, the overcomer is the man-child. The man-child overcomes. The woman is not prepared, therefore she has to flee to the wilderness. The rest of the church flees to the wilderness.